Sometimes when I'm talking, I don't necessarily be talking to the person that I'm looking at. I was looking right at Sister Cece. You going to forgive me? Oh, okay. Well, praise the Lord. Wow. Sister Cece, I got my biggest $50, and they were wet. You know, I said, oh my Lord, look what I did. Did I feed you too? All right. Come on, let's get proud of him. How many was in Sunday school this morning? Okay. So are you familiar with Ezekiel, the 47th chapter? Any of you familiar with that? All right. All right. I just like us to stand and read this. It's about 12 verses. How many of you have the New King James? Anyone have New King James? How many of you have King James? How many have Living Bible? What? The Living Bible. You want the Living Bible? All right, yeah. So if we try and read this together, we're going to be a mess, aren't we? All right. So why don't y'all just listen to me for a minute? All right. Then he brought me back to the door of the temple, and there was water flowing from under the threshold of the temple toward the east. The front of the temple faced east. The water was flowing from under the right side of the temple, south of the altar. He brought me out by the way of the north gate and led me around on the outside of the outer gateway that faces east. And there was water running out on the right side. And when the man went out to the east with the line in his hand, he measured 1,000 cubits. And he brought me through the water. The water was up to my what? Ankles. Again he measured 1,000 and brought me through the water. And the water was up to my knees. Again, he measured 1,000 and brought me through. The water came up to mine loins or waist, right? Again, he measured 1,000, and it was a river that I could not cross, for the water was too deep, water in which one must swim, a river that could not be crossed. And he said to me, Son of man, have you seen this? Then he brought me and returned me to the bank of the river. When I returned there alone, the bank of the river, there were very many trees on one side and the other. You may be seated. Ezekiel saw a lot of things. Right? He saw a lot of things. As I said to you before, he saw a wheel in the middle of a wheel. And we classified and say that wheel was Jesus. Amen. Many times we talk about Jesus and we begin to tell you what Jesus is to us. Many times we will say, and he's a wheel in the middle of a wheel. Ezekiel also saw a valley of dry bones. I talked about that, didn't I? Now, not that they were just dry, but they were very dry. And Ezekiel, God told him to speak to the dry bones. And thank God he obeyed God. And he spoke to the bones, and something happened. Praise God. There was a noise in the valley. All the different bones trying to find their connection. I wonder today, do you have your connection? And yes, and life was breathed into what was there. It was had no life in it. Even after the bones had come together, and flesh was on the bones, and connective tissue was in place. There was no life. And then he called for the four winds. The east and the west and the north and the south. And the wind came into the valley, and the bones, there was no more bones anymore. He witnessed a mighty army. Glory, glory, glory. And in the 47th chapter, is just another way of God speaking through the Son of Man, and getting him to see what God wanted to happen. And yes, we see in this lesson today that Ezekiel, the door of the temple had to be closed in order for the water only to come through the threshold. Now, y'all know what a threshold is. Yes, sir. This is that, that plate at the bottom of the door. So the door, it just didn't gush out at the door. It came under the threshold of the temple. Yes, sir. Which really meant something to me, that something must have been going on in the temple. All right. And then I see the Spirit of the Lord in the temple, and I see an overflow of His Spirit. And because I looked at another prophet, and he said that he saw God in the temple, and his train had filled the temple. So we're looking at the overflow. How many of us like to get into that overflow? it's like we say many times, Lord, I want it to rain, but even if it don't rain on me, just let a few drops fall on me. Glory. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. And so Israel was yet in that condition where I talked about, wherein they had disobeyed God. And a lot of us today, you remember when he sat there, he went out and someone had a tape and they measured 1,000 cubits. That's about 5 football fields, okay? And when that's a pretty long distance, amen. And when he measured, and he said, "Now come on, let's walk across." And they would walk across very well because the water only came up to their ankles. Right. And I remember, and I wonder how many Christians today are still in the shallow water. Because the things that they are doing and the life that they are living, a lot of this. And because you want to have your own way. You want to be like Burger King. But let me tell you something. In this way, you can't be like Burger King. You got to be committed. Then if that wasn't enough, he says, measure again. And he measured again. And he measured the same distance. And he said, now let's go across again. He said the water was up to the knee. Some of us gotta wade in the. See, because there's a reason for wading in the water. Because God's gonna. I remember the story that Jesus told when he went into the gate, the sheep gate, and that was at the sheep gate a pool of water. And there was 5 porches around that gate, and then on the back, those porches lied the church. I'm talking about shallow water now. And you see, some of us haven't even got up to our ankles. Some of us still. See, there are some people at the beach that never get in the water. They would get dressed just like everybody else on the beach. Never get in the water. They will get a suntan. They will lay in the sun, but they will never get in the water. You see, there are some people like to just look pretty. Well, let me tell you something. God's not about your good looks. You gotta understand that beauty is only. But it's not how you look on the outside. It's how you look on the inside. And so these men, people was laying around the water, but it was waiting for something. And then when one man had waited there for 37 years, how many of you have been in the church 37 years and you're yet waiting? Yet waiting. What the song? What that song? Been in the a long time, and I've been in the way of that's what y'all be singing. I've been in the way of a long time. Oh, we've been running. Oh, we've been running. But you know, some of us have been in the way a long time. Nobody can get around it. Come to me. Glory, 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 glory. And Christ came to that pool because they were waiting for the troubling of the Lord. And then Christ came to that pool. Because but one thing they didn't know, that Christ was the water. He was the troubling of the water. And he asked me, would you like to be made whole? The man started giving out excuses. Christ didn't ask him. Christ don't ask you for your excuses. He asked you a question, would you like to be made whole? And Christ finally had to say, just pick up your bed. Come on. Just pick up your bed and walk. And now listen to this. Back to Ezekiel's vision. Ezekiel had, the man had measured twice. And then he measured a third time.
Yes, sir.
Then he measured again.
Right.
And in measuring the fourth time,
I know.
he said the water was past my nose, past my head.
Yes, sir.
And the only way that I could get across.
Come on.
How many of you can swim? We need some swimming saints. I can't control myself anymore. So I need Jesus. I need him to control me. I need Jesus. Maybe you still don't understand. I gotta give it an example. Christ dealt with about 12 people all the time. They were fishermen. And Christ happened to ask them, have you caught any fish? He said, Lord, we fished all night long. Haven't caught a thing. But you know what he told them? See, ain't no fish in the water up to your ankle. And there are very few fish when the water's up to your knees. Christ said, now here's what you got to do. In order to catch the fish that I want you to catch, you got to launch out. Get up from where you're sitting and do something for Christ. See, now this wasn't just still water that you had to swim in. As a matter of fact, the water that came out of the threshold have now turned into a raving river. And see, and how many of you would like to be out in a raging river out of control. Peter, there was trouble about water. Peter looked out and he saw something. He saw something on the water. It wasn't a boat. And he's being a fisherman, he can tell if it was a ship. So he looked out and he says, Lord, is that you? Glory. And Jesus answered, yes. And Peter said, Lord, if you can bid me. How many of you are asking the Lord to bid you to come out in the water? You feel pretty good. You get up to your knees. Let me tell you something. A lot of you have been safe in the boat. But the only way you could possibly walk on water is to get out of your safety zone. Step in the water to your ankles, but knowing if you got out the boat, you're going to be walking water over your head. Let's stand for a moment. What am I saying? Wading in the water is good, but it's not enough. If you're wading in the water, you're not deep enough yet. There are higher heights and deeper depths in the Lord. Now the question is, where are you? Have you ever tackled into something you know was over your head?
Right. Yes, sir.
And I mean, you're still living and you came through it. And you couldn't thank nobody but Jesus. Have you ever been in a situation where you couldn't find any way out? The lawyer couldn't get you out. The doctor couldn't get you out. Nobody could get you out. But you look to Jesus. You found that He is the way, the truth, and the life. Where are you? Come on, fellas. Well, if you were in Sunday school this morning, you know what else happened. You know all that happened. Well, the Jordan River flows into the Salton Sea, into the Dead Sea. It flows, and it can't. It is the Dead Sea is 1,300 feet below sea level. And and it has nowhere to go. It just stands there and evaporates. And the more it evaporates, the more salty it gets. The more salty it gets, nothing can live in it. Nothing. I say nothing can live in. That's why they call it the Dead Sea. Nothing. I've been there. I saw grass can't even grow around. Grass can't even grow around. And can you imagine the world dead? They needed an injection of fresh water.
I know.
So from the temple of God,
I know.
gushed under the threshold of the temple, fresh water, all the way to the Dead Sea. And fresh water was flowing into the Dead Sea. Things became alive.
Yes, sir.
Trees began to grow. Fish began to swim. If you will allow Jesus to come into your lives,
Oh, yes. I know.
he don't care how dry the bones have been. He don't care how dead you have been. He says, I can give you new life. I can make you whole. I can make you alive again. And some of us are dead. Dead from alcohol. Dead from dope. Dead from the way we've been living. Dead. But then Christ came. Jesus now, if you just come to me out of your belly, out of your